So who are the people who typically set up a trust, particularly if it's the kind of avoid probate trust that so many people want to have to eliminate all the government bureaucracy from settling their estate? Well, the people in Louisiana, they're called the Settlors. In other states, they're called Grantors and Trustors. The Settlors are the people who sign the trust once it's all prepared, customized by the attorney. The Settlors are the people who set up the trust. Who are the Settlors? Well, can be different circumstances. If there is a single unmarried person who's setting up a trust, typically it's that single person who maybe mom's passed away years ago, or maybe dad's divorced, maybe dad sets up a trust. He's the settlor, so he signs setting up the trust as the settlor. Now, trusts are real common for married couples to set up the trust. Avoids the two probates, one at each death, and avoids more probates if they have some property in other states. So typically both spouses are the settlors. They're the ones who sign setting up the trust. Some married couples who set up trusts, or some married people who set up trusts, worry that if they put their separate property, maybe inherited property or property that was gifted to them, or maybe something they brought into the marriage, they worry that if that goes into that joint trust, then it becomes community property. So most avoid probate trusts have provisions that say that, if separate property of one of those spouses goes into the trust, then it retains its separate property status in the trust. So oftentimes married couples set up a trust together. Maybe it's called a joint trust. Now, sometimes married couples will have separate trusts. You see that a lot sometimes when you have couples who get married later in life. He has her assets, she has her assets. Maybe they have a prenup, separate property marriage contract, where they're keeping their assets separate to make it real clear who owns what, different heirs, different beneficiaries, different families. So maybe that couple, each spouse sets up a trust, again, to continue to keep the trust assets separate. And then in some same-sex marriages, sometimes the same-sex couples will have separate trusts. Sometimes for emotional reasons, that same-sex couple will want to have a joint trust. They want to make sure everything's together. So those couples, can do it either way. So when it comes to who sets up the trust, it's typically either a single person, or it's a married couple setting up a joint trust, or it's a married couple setting up separate trusts. It can be done a bunch of different ways. Maybe one other point worth making is that sometimes when a person who needs a trust is incapacitated, but they had previously signed a power of attorney authorizing somebody else to act for them, that person who can act for them, often called the agent under the power of attorney, often can establish this on behalf of the incapacitated person. Got to be tricky about that. There's some special rules there, and got to make sure you're not changing who gets the stuff when the person dies. So special issues arise in those circumstances.